Hare Krishna. So welcome to the 14th portion of our Bhagavad Gita section of the Bhakti Shastri. And this we're beginning now, this week, chapter 7. We're going to cover half of chapter 7. We're starting now the 6 chapters that focus exclusively on bhakti, having passed through the first 6 chapters, which talked much about what's often termed the yoga ladder, or the series of different yogas that Krishna recommends to Arjuna in the beginning, which in the best case scenario culminates in bhakti. And so the middle 6 chapters talk exclusively about that. We're going to, the chapters tend to be a little bit shorter in this section, and since it's really kind of the heart of the Bhagavad Gita, we're going to cover things a bit more slowly. Because of our time situation, we have to move pretty quickly anyway. But in this section, we'll take advantage of the smaller chapters and go a bit more slowly, because there's more things we want to cover in greater detail than in the first chapters. There's a little bit less repetition. There's quite a bit of repetition, really, in the yoga ladder section. Krishna and Arjuna kept having recurring themes that would come back. Arjuna would have certain fears about whether he should actually participate in the battle, whether intelligence was better than action, so why not cop out of the battle, and other times if renunciation was recommended, he thinks why should he participate? So they seem to cover things in some detail and with some level of repetition. So today we're gonna start out. We're supposed to cover verses 1 through 15, but I want to start again and review the last verse of chapter 647, because that was the transition from this meditational yoga, which was the end of the yoga ladder, except for bhakti. Bhakti is the final step, and the last verse transitioned to that. Krishna talked about how somebody who could go deep into meditation, have a vision of Paramatma, the super soul, who could transfer that vision to their daily lives. That's really as high as the rest of the yoga ladder could go. And then he said, well, that's not all there is. So there's something even better than that, and that's what he's going to discuss, starting in chapter 7. And so the verse 67 was, "And of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all." That's my opinion. So this is where Krishna, he says, okay, that's pretty good. You come to the point of liberation. You understand yourself as a soul. You see the super soul. It's a pretty powerful experience, because there's something that's greater, and he indicates that superior path centers upon remembering and serving him personally. The super soul is an expansion of Krishna, but now you're going to directly deal with me. There are different parts in the yoga ladder we saw where bhakti would enter into it. Krishna would say that you should fix your consciousness on me. You should offer your works to me. There are places where it cropped up, but it wasn't the focus. Our acharyas explain that every other type of dharma requires a little bit of bhakti, and we'll learn why actually today in this first section of chapter 7. And in that purport to 647, Srila Prabhupada says the word bhajate is significant here. Bhajate has its root in the verb bhaj, which is used when there is need of service. The English word worship cannot be used in the same sense as bhaj. Worship means to adore or to show respect and honor to the worthy one, but service with love and faith is especially meant for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can avoid worshipping a respectable man or a demigod, and may be called discourteous, but one cannot avoid serving the Supreme Lord without being thoroughly condemned. So the advantages here of bhakti that Krishna is about to describe is that it involves Krishna directly, going directly to the Supreme rather than to the level of the super soul in the dhyana yoga, the highest level of yoga described thus far. And bhakti emphasizes service, which is important, where super soul realization is more a matter of adoration and respect, or the more conventional definition of worship as Prabhupada gave it. And we'll understand today that Prabhupada made that interesting statement at the end of the purport. It was always intriguing to me when I first read that. It says, one can avoid worshipping a respectable man or demigod and may be called discourteous, but one cannot avoid serving the Supreme Lord without being thoroughly condemned. We'll keep that in mind because we're going to find out why Prabhupada says that when we read Krishna's teachings in the first half of this chapter 7. And with that, and I guess I'll give you a little hint now. As Krishna reveals more about himself, we will understand that his unique nature is the reason Srila Prabhupada says that serving Krishna is an imperative rather than an option. And Prabhupada says further in the purport, it is by great fortune that one comes to Krishna consciousness on the path of bhakti yoga to become well situated according to the Vedic direction. The ideal yogi concentrates his attention on Krishna, who is called Shama Sundar, who is as beautifully colored as a cloud, whose lotus-like face is as effulgent as the sun, whose dress is brilliant with jewels, and whose body is flower-garlanded. Illuminating all sides is his gorgeous luster, which is called the Brahmajyotir. He incarnates in different forms, such as Rama, Nrsimha, Varaha, and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he descends like a human being as the son of Mother Yashoda, and he is known as Krishna, Govinda, and Vasudeva. He is the perfect child, husband, friend, master, and he is full with all opulences and transcendental qualities. If one remains fully conscious of these features of the Lord, he is called the highest yogi. So you can see how Prabhupada is making that kind of comparison to the meditational yogi who's trying to focus on the super soul. So we in bhakti are also going to try to focus our attention on the Lord, but in this case it'll be Krishna himself, on Bhagavan, the source of the super soul. And this is I thought this was a really beautiful passage. So starting chapter 1, it's Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Saktamana Parta Yogam Yunjan Madashraya Asangshayam Samagram Mam Yata Gyasyasi Tachchanu. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, now hear, O son of Pritha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. And Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, in the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the living entity has been described as non-material spirit soul, capable of elevating himself to self-realization by different types of yogas. At the end of the 6th chapter, it has been clearly stated that the steady concentration of the mind upon Krishna, or in other words, Krishna consciousness, is the highest form of all yoga. By concentrating one's mind upon Krishna, one is able to know the Absolute completely, but not otherwise. Impersonal Brahmajyotir or localized Paramatma realization is not perfect knowledge of the Absolute Truth because it is partial. Full and scientific knowledge is Krishna, and everything is revealed to the person in Krishna consciousness. So that's from Prabhupada's commentary. And then he says also there, he says, one should therefore begin yoga practice as directed in the last verse of the 6th chapter. Concentration of the mind upon Krishna, the Supreme, is made possible by prescribed devotional service in 9 different forms, of which Shravanam is the first and most important. And then the Prabhupada indicates also in the purport, that the process develops gradually and in an orderly fashion, leading all the way to direct experience of Krishna. So this begins by hearing about Krishna, and Krishna, of course, is going to, in the following verses, is going to start telling about himself. We're going to hear important information that will help us to focus the mind on Krishna. In fact, it's going to be interesting how it develops, how we have a little different, we do something similar to what the yogis do, but we have a little different twist on it that avoids some of the difficult features of that meditational yoga. So Prabhupada mentions that this is a process that has a beginning with hearing, and he quoted extensively in the purport from a section of the Srimad Bhagavatam which shows how devotional service develops step by step. And a good measure of that progress is the level of asakta mana, the mind, the attachment that the mind has for Krishna. It says that when we practice devotional service, we're trying to make, first of all, that attachment continuous. That's the first major step. Well, first, of course, we start being attached at all, but then the next major step is when we can become attached continuously. And then it becomes more and more intense. Asakta, it can mean attachment, but also can mean like addiction, something very, very strong, a strong attachment. And so that level of strong attachment can result in the revelation that Prabhupada talks, or Krishna talks about. It says that you can know him in full. So that's when it says you can know me in full, free from doubt. That's the mature stage of bhakti practice. It begins with hearing, and it begins particularly with trying to fix the mind on Krishna. And so the level, the consistency with which we do that, and then the intensity with which we do that, is a measure of the level of progress that we're making. In the second verse, Krishna says, "I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both phenomenal and numinous. This being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know." In the purport, Prabhupada says, complete knowledge includes knowledge of the phenomenal world, the spirit behind it, and the source of both of them. This is transcendental knowledge, and this is what Krishna is going to tell us. And it's interesting, Prabhupada uses this term numinous knowledge. And he is phenomenal and numinous. And when I first read this, I thought that Prabhupada had intended to say numinal, because usually phenomenal is something that you can see, and numinal, something that's beyond the range of the senses, are used in opposition to one another. But Prabhupada has sometimes a very remarkable vocabulary, and so sometimes he uses words that were not. I wasn't familiar with the word numinous. I thought maybe even there had been some editing mistake or something. I thought he really meant numinal, phenomenal and numinal. But it's not true. I looked it up. So I looked up numinous to see what it said, and it turns out that Prabhupada has because it's unconventional. The phenomenal he is a translation of jnana. Mm-hmm. Usually that's just knowledge, and then the numinous is vijnana, which is usually translated as realized knowledge, applied knowledge, scientific knowledge. Mm-hmm. So this is a I think it's the only time he translates vijnana in this way. And when I read the definition, the English definition, it became clear to me why it was the best possible term he could have used. I was really impressed by his use of the English language. It was much superior to mine. And the definition says, having a strong religious or spiritual quality, this is numinous, indicating or suggesting the presence of a divinity. So this is really interesting, because the main weakness we saw in dhyana yoga, this is in the meditational process, this is what Arjuna was worried about. Mm-hmm. He says, how do you do it? Because it says, the yogis are withdrawing their attention, mm-hmm. first of all from the senses, Like we said during this, try not to see. If you close your eyes, you still see blackness. So you try not to see, feel, taste, touch. Okay? And then, of course, even if they're able to do that, how can you not think? And so they withdraw their attention even from the mind. And so we mentioned how in chapter 6, the yogis have to really struggle with the mind. And so Arjuna said, no way that's possible. And Prabhupada quotes that many times. If somebody like Arjuna couldn't do it, we can't do it. Right? But what's happening with bhakti is we still, though, have to fix our mind on Krishna. So for the yogis, the reason that they withdraw their senses and withdraw their attention from the senses and mind is because this is the material world. Right? Krishna told them right in the beginning, there are things which are temporary and things which are eternal. And he told Arjuna to focus on the eternal. Right? So in order to focus on that, they were taking their attention away from everything external, everything that was temporary. But that's really hard to do. Hardly anybody can do that. And so Krishna is going to give us a different kind of process, how we can remember him without pulling our attention away from the mind and senses while we're still using the mind and senses. And because we're going to find out knowledge about Krishna that's going to allow us to feel or to understand the presence of divinity, Krishna's presence, even in ordinary material phenomena. And that's what he's going to talk a lot about here in chapter 7. How we can look at material objects in a more spiritual way. So it's not that we will stop seeing them, but we will see them in a new and different way, understanding their connection with Krishna. So we'll be able to asakta manaha, remember Krishna, be attached to the remembrance of Krishna, even while the mind and the sense, through the workings of the mind and senses even, not even in spite of them. So let's go further to text number 3. And here Krishna mentions the rarity of bhakti. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschid mambeti tatvataha is the Sanskrit. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So first of all, he said most people aren't even interested in self-realization. Prabhupada says in the purport, he says, generally mankind is simply engaged in the animal propensities, namely eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, and hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. So that's out of many of those types of folks. So for that reason, out of many thousands, only maybe one decides to take up spiritual knowledge. And Prabhupada says later, the first 6 chapters of the Gita are meant for those who are interested in transcendental knowledge, in understanding the self, the super self, and the process of realization by jnana yoga, jnana yoga, and discrimination of the self from matter. However, Krishna can be known only by persons who are in Krishna consciousness. So many other people, they may take up even this yoga ladder process. So out of many thousands of people, nine or however many thousand, not just 1,000, it's thousands. So out of every thousand, several thousand, one of them maybe take up this yoga path. And then out of thousands of those who succeed, maybe only one of them will carry on to bhakti. So the yoga ladder not only is very difficult, but the results, even when you reach the top of it, are a little bit, they're even then it may not happen. That you may not reach the very top of the ladder, which is bhakti. It's meant to take you there. That's why Krishna has set it up. It's many people who succeed. And we even mentioned how it may take many births, for it to happen. So it's a small percentage that do that, And then Prabhupada says, it is not possible for the Brahman realized impersonalist or the Paramatma realized yogi to understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the son of Yashoda or the charioteer of Arjuna. So again, it shows the rarity and the value of bhakti. And so that's why, if there wasn't value, then why worry about it? Maybe why not join the thousands of yogis that are successful? Because he says they can't. A jnani can understand Brahman, and a yogi can understand Paramatma, but Krishna is the full transcendental truth, and so that's only knowable through bhakti. So bhakti produces a greater result, and therefore is more valuable. 7.4, earth, and here Krishna is going to start to give us a meditation on the material energy.
What is that translation?
See, it's earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. He says, they're possessive. They're his. He says they're separated, which means that they're not his core energies. He produces these for a purpose, but they're not his best stuff.
They are related with the material energy.
They are the material. They're the different varieties. So Prabhupada says in the purport, he says, in the material energy, the principal manifestations are 8, as above mentioned. Out of these, the first 5 manifestations, namely earth, water, fire, air, and sky, are called the 5 gigantic creations, or the gross creations, within which the 5 sense objects are included. So he said that when he talks about those things, he also means that there's taste, touch, smell, all these things. The way the elements are created, as it says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we're gonna bring that up again later too, is that it starts out with ether or space, and space has the quality of sound. Now it's interesting if we look in the physical world, the regular physical world, the sound is physical sound. As I'm speaking now and as you're hearing, it needs a medium. Right. It's actually touch that's hitting your eardrums. But in the Vedas it says that there are more subtle forms of sound that start from the lowest chakras. And so when you speak a word, where you speak something, it doesn't immediately come out like that. It says that first it comes in a very subtle form. Then your mind is understanding what you're saying. Your intelligence it comes from the heart. It comes from the navel. It comes from higher up. There's I can't remember the different levels. And then it is spoken. Because even if we don't speak something, if we stop ourselves from speaking, we feel what we were about to speak.
Oh, I see.
Okay? So in those cases, it doesn't have any medium. It doesn't have a medium because it hasn't been physically spoken. We can hear, we can think in our heads, and we can begin to say something and feel the emotion of it, and stop ourselves. Yes. See, so those levels of sound don't require a medium, and so in empty space, they can be there. So it says our thoughts affect the ether. They travel around, they travel around the ether. That's what sometimes we say, right? You go to some place and there's good energy there, or there's bad vibes there. You can feel sometimes. You enter a room and and you haven't heard anything, but you feel that. And so it's like that. That's it's more kind of a subtle form of sound. It's not the gross form. So the space has sound of that kind,
right.
And then the next element is air. And air has the quality of touch, right? Yeah. You have to turn on the fan, you blow, and you can feel it. It doesn't have anything else. It has sound also, and it has touch.
Right.
But it doesn't have form. Air is whatever form you capture it in. Right. So fire, energy has a form.
Right.
It has sound, right? It has touch. Obviously, try to touch it,
Yeah.
right? You can feel it. You can hear it crackles away. You know, there's a rush of the air, of the hot air coming out, and it has form. And then water has all those things plus taste.
Oh, I see.
You can taste it.
I see.
Fire, I guess you could touch it with your tongue, but it wouldn't have a taste. It would just burn you.
Right.
In the air, and so then the next thing, earth has smell, has aroma. It has all the other things plus aroma.
Right.
And so that's why it says when it talks about those 5 elements, it's also understood that they're talking about these sensations, the sensation of sound, of touch, of form, of taste and smell. Those things are understood to be included in that list because those are what they're for. That's how they manifest.
Can I ask one question here? Regarding this ether,
Yeah.
when you said like it's a very nice description you give about these all 5 things. Ether, you said like there is no medium. This is like
It's more like space, yeah. Because in the history of Western science, they thought they used to say nature abhors a vacuum, so they thought there was a substance there.
I see.
And then through different experiments, they seem to. Now, of course, in these days, it takes pages of equations, if you want to quantum equations to describe empty space.
Right, yeah.
So maybe there's even something.
Something existing.
Something is there, yeah. But it's more or less the best probably the way for us to understand it's empty space. That's what ether is.
And bro, you said like thought is the one they traverse.
Yeah, it travels through the ether.
Through the ether.
Yeah.
I mean, we think about something.
Yeah.
And how far they can traverse.
Well, like I said, sometimes it travels all the way around the earth if people are perceptive enough. That's why some people, yogis can read minds because you're actually broadcasting your thoughts. And so we kind of feel that even, when somebody's angry or somebody's this, you can feel that, So
Even somebody is sitting very far and angry,
yeah,
you can
feel it. So somebody who's very attuned to that is if the thoughts seem like a private thing to you, because for the most part we can't see it in others, we can't, we can only perceive ourselves. We're actually really broadcasting it,
because it is
and people who are enough receptive, they can pick up on it to greater and greater degrees.
I see. Thank you so much.
So then he says the false ego, I am and it is mine, which constitute the basic principle of material existence, includes 10 sense organs for material activities. So when it says the false ego, it means also what you identify as yourself. Okay? So the false ego is the thing that makes us think that our equipment here, our mind and our especially our body, and because there's 10 senses in Sanskrit, in the Vedic tradition, there's the 5 senses we talk about in the West, and they call the knowledge gathering senses. So but then there's also the senses which act, the karma indriyani, so the arms and the legs, and the tongue is both. The tongue tastes and the tongue speaks. So things that act on the world and things that receive information. So there's a total of 10 of those, and so it said that, and those are what we identify with. We think those are me. We talked about previously about how we're the seer. The soul is conscious, but because because we're so absorbed in it, that we begin to identify with our physical selves and our mental selves. So when you talk about false ego, it also implies what you're misidentifying with. And then he says intelligence refers to the total material creation called the Mahatattva. And therefore, from the 8 separated energies of the Lord are manifest the 24 elements of the material world. Because sometimes the different Sankhya people, they say there's different numbers of elements. So here he says that implied in this are a total of 24, even though he's only speaking of 8. The 10 other senses, the 5 tanmatras, the sensations, and the Mahatattva, which is the origin of all the intelligence, is there. And then he says, besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mine which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this inferior nature. So he says first of all there's, because now he's talking about phenomena here. Okay? He was talking about jnana. Okay? And so he said, I'm going to talk about the jnana and vijnana. So first things, the things that are part of your experience. So he says, first of all, we have these separated potencies. Okay? We have those. Now, he says, now there's others we experience living beings. We experience life.
Can I add one question here? Here he mentioned about the superior energy of mind, Lord Krishna. And this is on the 7th chapter. Does he shows here already his that Virat root or something or not yet?
No, that's the 11th chapter.
11, but he is already saying like I am the.
Well, look what he says. What that means. The superior energy means the souls.
Oh, I see.
And that's he's defining that very clearly here. He says jiva bhutam. He says param jiva bhutam. So he's focusing on a very particular thing. He said we're talking about phenomena, and we're talking about the noumenal.
Right.
Numinous. So this is the phenomenon. This is what we see. Okay? And so he's saying these things are all his energies. He says all the physical elements, the sensations, all this stuff, plus the living spirits. He says these are all my energies. He's claiming them. Now you see where we're heading? We're trying to meditate, fixing our mind on Krishna. Okay? For the yogis, they had to withdraw their attention from everything in order to begin to see the super soul. Now we can't even do that, so how can we begin to see Krishna? So he's identifying everything that you can see and experience, it's connected with me, you see? And you see how that becomes numinous. That you then, when you understand, this is Krishna's energy, I'm Krishna's energy, then you feel the presence of the divine, feel the presence of Krishna. You don't see things like we do otherwise. And here it says that and it says here the living entities are exploiting the resources of the material energy.
I see.
We think it's ours and we're trying to use it for our pleasure. Krishna talked about this from the very beginning, that we're affected by this attachment and aversion. And so we're trying to find happiness and avoid unhappiness. And we're doing that by trying to control and use these physical objects. We're living things. But everything else, all the other physical things and subtle things, we're trying to use to our advantage. And so obviously, as we'll mention later also, that if we know that they are not ours, we think they're ours. Somehow it's here, somehow we're here, everybody's using it, why shouldn't I?
Yeah.
So now we're already finding out that they've come from Krishna, that he claims them to be his. See, so that should change our attitude. Okay, so now we're seeing how Krishna's working here, how he's allowing us to meditate, to think of him all the time.
And it is very hard to think in that way that even though he clearly mentioned here that everything is his, but whenever we come to the material attachment, then we say, oh, this is mine.
Well, that's why Prabhupada mentions it's a process. But this is the start of the process. So now Prabhupada says in the purport, the Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller, and all living entities are controlled by him. These living entities are his superior energy, because the quality of their existence is one and the same with the Supreme, but they are never equal to the Lord in quantity of power. While exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy matter, the superior energy living entity forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. So that's what we're experiencing. But now Krishna's trying to give us information to try to reverse that tendency. This is a long-held tendency, and so it's not easily removed. But also Krishna will give us some advice later on about how that can be done. So the sixth verse is now he sums it all up, sums the last couple of verses up very clearly. He says, all created beings have their source in these two natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. All right, so he says it's all mine. Okay, just that's it. I mean, how can you be more clear? He said first there's this, then there's this. This is mine. He says, now, do you see how that adds up? That's all there is, and it's all mine. Okay. I've given you the two components. Right? I've claimed each to be one.
This is mine. This is mine. Both.
And just in case you're not very good at math and can add those two things together and say that's everything, I'm going to tell you it's everything. Okay? Just in case you missed that subtle point there. There's only this, and I own both of them. That means I own everything. Okay? And then he says, this is a really nice verse here. O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. So there's a couple of different important points in this verse. Prabhupada mentions in the purport, he says, there is a common controversy over whether the supreme absolute truth is personal or impersonal. We talked a lot about this in the Isha Upanishad. Mm-hmm. But as far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned, the absolute truth is the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, and this is confirmed in every step. In this verse in particular, it is stressed that the absolute truth is a person. He says, me. Nothing is superior to me. Yeah. Otherwise, people will say, well, there's the unborn within Krishna, or, he's only taken this form as a temporarily to react to you. There's something more superior to him that he's come from. Mm-hmm. He says, no, I'm it. And then Prabhupada says, from these verses, one concludes that the supreme absolute truth is the supreme personality of Godhead, who is all-pervading by his multi-energies, both material and spiritual. And so my comment is that previously Krishna revealed that he is the source of everything in this world. Here he states himself to be the highest truth and shows that his creations do not exist independently. This is something that we do not exist independently. This is something we talked a lot about in the Isha Upanishad. When the supreme whole, the complete whole produces all these other wholes, and we talked about how things don't exist independently. So it's not just that he creates them, but it says they rest upon him. Their existence depends upon him. Mm-hmm. You see, so so like when we create something, for one, well, of course, usually we have to use some kind of material that's there that we didn't create, but it's something different than us. Mm-hmm. If we disappear, it stays there.
Right.
Some people build big monuments and things. They say this was built by such and such.
Right.
The Taj Mahal by Shah Jahan. He's long gone. It's still standing there. But with Krishna, it says it rests upon me. So if you look at you have a little pearl necklace as he's describing there. Mm. The pearls he created, but they stay there. They remain because of his power of existence. They're simply a part of his power of existence. And so they also, so that also brings that presence of the divine to my mind much closer. Exactly. And not only is it mine, but they're existing because it's connected with him. Because he's supporting everything, maintaining everything.
Running actually, it means he's there. Also.
Yeah. So he in a subtle form, he's present there.
Exactly.
It's not only his work, but he's present there, just to have them continue to exist. So again, that feeling of the numinous, where you feel the presence of the Lord.
So, Prabhu, we are kind of very, very protected by him all the time, even though we are in this world. We are not like separate out or something, is it?
No,
we always like
see that's
there and everything. Then we are
see that's the crazy thing about it. Okay, that's the crazy thing about it. We were forgetful of the Lord, and it seems like hard work to remember Him. But the actual state of things is that you can't escape Krishna.
Because He's everywhere.
He's everything. So you can't. So it's a miracle that He makes possible. Because we want to forget, so He helps us to do so. But otherwise, literally, it's not possible. By logic, it's not possible. You can't. It's all Krishna. You can't. There's nothing. All existence is Krishna. So there's no place to go.
Yeah.
There's no place to go.
Even He's your intelligence.
Everything, even our ability to forget Him is done by Him. But it's out of His mercy. So then Krishna gives us some meditations here. So, son of Kunti, I am the taste of water. the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and ability in man. So what we have here, now Prabhupada is interesting. He gives us different ways to look at this. But generally, when Krishna talks about it, in chapter 10 we get a whole big list of these things, his vibhutis. It's called something called the Vibhuti Mat chapter. It's all about his opulences. But again, as we mentioned before, taste is the defining part of water. That's the new quality that makes water appear. It's like they call it as its cause. So as the elements progress, they start from ether, then new quality is added, becomes air, touch is added, then form is added, and you get fire. Then taste is added, and you get water.
Right.
So taste is the thing that makes water water, from the Vedic point of view. That's the essence of it, or some of the acharyas say the cause of it. And then otherwise, so it's either like the essential characteristic, or it's the most prominent characteristic, the light of the sun and the moon. So at least from the earth, the sun and the moon are prominent by their light. So sometimes it's the essential characteristic. Sometimes it's the most prominent or important characteristic, or sometimes it doesn't happen so much in this list, but in the 10th chapter you'll get the best of a group of things. That's what he usually focuses on when he says I'm these things. Actually, he's everything, and he mentions that at the end. But he gives us certain prominent ones that will help us remember, but also, I think, inspire some reverence. Right. Because he's also bad aromas. I had somebody ask me one time, if God is everything, if everything is part of God, why wouldn't we worship an outhouse? Why wouldn't we worship an outhouse?
Oh, I see.
Right, because that's also energy of the divine. But it just doesn't inspire the right mood.
Right. As he said, actually, I am in all the rivers and the Ganga.
So that's the best of a group. You see. So it's either an essential quality. It's the most prominent quality, or the most important one, or the best of a group. Right. And because Krishna is wonderful, and so he tries to give us examples that lead us towards an understanding of his wonderful nature. Okay. So Om is the origin of all the other Vedas. It's the seed of all the rest of the Vedas. Sound, again, that's what makes ether, and the ability, if people can do things. That's when we say when somebody does wonderful things, they're a great guy. So he's that ability that will allow them to do things. So Prabhupada says in the purport, he says the Supreme Lord can be preliminarily perceived by his different energies, and in this way he is realized impersonally. As the demigod in the sun is a person and is perceived by his all-pervading energy, the sunshine, so the Lord, although in his eternal abode, is perceived by his all-pervading diffusive energies. So he's saying that of course that we know that Krishna has a spiritual, transcendental form living in the transcendental world. And so, like the yogis, to see the spiritual form of the super soul had to completely withdraw their attention. We, at the moment, don't have the ability to see Krishna face to face, although that is given as something that will happen if we are successful in our bhakti. We can reach that kind of level, just like the yogis do. We'll see Krishna, not the Paramatma. We can see him face to face. Arjuna is riding on the chariot with him. He's interacting with him. So that happens. It's not easy, but it happens. But he says, for now, we can encounter Krishna through his energies. And if we meditate on his energies as being part of him, and especially if we do it kind of in this way, they give certain potent examples. And we should tend to follow those examples, even though it's everything. Anything that's inspiring, maybe we can do. So then he says, the taste of water is the active principle of water. No one likes to drink seawater because the pure taste of water is mixed with salt. Attraction for water depends on the purity of the taste, and this pure taste is one of the energies of the Lord. Now, Prabhupada, he one place he gives an interesting interesting take on this. He says that if somebody is a drunkard and addicted to alcohol, now that's not something that the bhaktas are supposed to indulge in. But he says, if somehow, because it's something dear to them, if they can think that the taste of their liquor is Krishna, that they can begin to become purified. Because at least for them, because what's good and what's bad, of course, in a lot of ways, it depends on your perspective.
Right.
So the vulture likes dead bodies, rotted dead bodies. It tastes good to them. And so if they could think, if they had that kind of conscience, they could think that's Krishna. That would be helpful to them. For us, we usually aren't going to think that's very attractive.
Right.
And the same way, so even though we shouldn't be thinking of Krishna as tasting like whiskey or something, but if somebody's addicted to that, if they can think of that, then they can purify them.
Then they will be more attached. If they will think like this is the Krishna, then they will drink more. And then
well, it depends on their attitude. Because if it's Krishna, they understand that that he's worshipable and the creator.
He will give them the knowledge after.
Yeah, that's the idea.
If they think about it.
Well, Prabhupada said they would become purified. So he says, so you could get some mercy. Yeah, because they're thinking of him.
Yeah.
They're thinking of him.
Then they will change.
So he helps. So, and then the 9th verse, I am the original fragrance of the earth. Again, the fragrance was the essential characteristic there. I'm the heat and fire. Now, in this case, it's more of a prominent quality than its essence. Because, fire we usually don't burn fire to see its form. We burn it for the heat and for the light. So in that case, it's a very prominent quality. I am the life of all that lives. And I am the penances of all the ascetics, those who practice penance. So all those things are there. And Prabhupada says in his purport, he says, without fire, we cannot run factories, we cannot cook, and that fire is Krishna. The heat in the fire is Krishna. According to Vedic medicine, indigestion is due to a low temperature in the belly. So even for digestion, fire is needed. In Krishna consciousness, we become aware that earth, water, fire, air, and every active principle, all chemicals and all material elements are due to Krishna. The duration of man's life is also due to Krishna. Therefore, by the grace of Krishna, man can prolong his life or diminish it. So Krishna consciousness is active in every sphere. So it also, understanding what Krishna is telling us here also provokes the worship or the service. We feel dependent. We feel gratitude. We realize how we can't do anything independently and that Krishna is so kind to us in so many ways. So therefore we should be eager to do something in return. So this notion also not only helps us to fix our mind on Krishna, but it opens our heart to do service, to reciprocate with him. Now we're coming up onto the 10th verse. And he says, O son of Pritha, know that I am the original seed of all existences. And Sarvabhutan, all living entities. The intelligence of the intelligent and the prowess of all powerful men. Power or power, Teja, power of Tejasvinam. The prowess or power of the powerful. And Krishna, Prabhupada says, therefore, originally Krishna is the source of everything. He is the root. As the root of a tree maintains the whole tree, Krishna, being the original root of all things, maintains everything in this material manifestation. So, pretty much sums the situation. So this is how we do it. This is how, without transcendental vision, which we don't have right now, and without the ability to withdraw the senses away from the objects, we can remember Krishna by understanding how he has manifested everything. We can especially have certain particular things that we can meditate on and relate to Krishna. And that way we fix our mind on him. Now in bhakti, in our regular practice, we have a few things that connect us quite directly. We chant Hare Krishna, we chant the Maha Mantra. That's Krishna personally present. We have the deity forms. We hear about Krishna's Leela and his activities in Bhagavad Gita, but Srimad Bhagavatam and other things. We have certain ways that we come into very close contact with Krishna. But for the most part, much of our day, much of our time, we're spent dealing with these other energies. We're surrounded by them, and so Krishna has given us the way that we interact with them. So we still see, instead of trying not to see them, we see them in a new way. And that allows our meditation on Krishna, having our mind fixed on him, to continue and eventually in all circumstances. First of all, it's going to be in more circumstances. That's where we have to start. We have to start in some circumstances, and then in more circumstances, and then in a lot of circumstances, to most circumstances, and to all circumstances, and then and more intensely. That's how it works. But this is the starting point. So it's interesting. It's kind of a continuation of the kind of thing that was happening in the 6th chapter, but it's meditation, but and taken in a different way without having to withdraw the senses. It's quite interesting that way. In the 11th verse, he says, "I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life which is not contrary to religious principles, O Lord of the Bharatas." Because Krishna has no material desires. Even the yogis don't. Mm-hmm. If once they experience the fullness of being a soul, we're actually completely full. We're self-satisfied. Mm-hmm. Desires, which seem to be an integral part of our existence, are meaningless to somebody who understands the soul. You feel whole. You feel complete. You're completely fulfilled. You don't need anything. So that's why it says that when Arjuna asked that question about how do you describe somebody who has the divine consciousness, so they don't have any desires that arise from the mind. You think, wow, that's different. But it's natural for them. It's not that they fight it. I'm not going to have any desires. I'm not going to. They once they've come to that point where they can understand themselves as a soul, they realize that this stuff is just superficial. They're completely happy. We have desires because we either feel unhappy and want to fix that, or we want to feel happy because we don't feel happy enough. Yeah. We feel that we're incomplete. That feeling of incompleteness is what causes the happiness and distress and the desires for things. So when they realize themselves as a soul, no more, no problem. So Krishna, what to speak of Krishna? Even somebody who's a regular soul has no desires, is completely full. Krishna is completely full. He's everything. So he doesn't use his strength as Prabhupada says, in an aggressive way. In the purport, Prabhupada says, the strong man's strength should be applied to protect the weak, not for personal aggression. So the strong man's strength should be applied to protect the weak, not for personal aggression. So we see also when Krishna fights, he does so to establish religious principles and to protect his devotees and things. Right. So he doesn't have passion. So his strength isn't. He's the strongest guy, right? Mm-hmm. He doesn't then run amok over everybody and wreak havoc everywhere in order to try to fulfill his desires. He doesn't have any. Mm-hmm. So his strength is without his passion and desire. And so when people are doing that when they're acting in service, the kshatriyas, that's their name means one who protects from hurt. Mm-hmm. The warriors they're not there as much for personal aggrandizement as it is for them to do their religious duty and protect others. They use their strength in a noble way. Not all of them do that way, but that's ideally how it's supposed to be. And I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principles. So again, he's saying it's not just for, it says it should be for the propagation of children, not otherwise. So it's not just also out of passion, or out of desire. So those are also things that are relatable to us. And then in 12, he says, know that, and he sums it up again here, know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything. Okay.
Again, he mentions.
Yeah, so he's summing it up very, very, very clearly. I am in one sense everything. But I'm independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. See, now again, we talked about this a lot, and also in Isha Upanishad, how Krishna may appear to be in the world. He walks, but he does not walk. Mm-hmm. So when he's in Vrindavan, or here he's there on the chariot with Arjuna, he walked up to the chariot, got on, he drives around. He looks like he's within the world.
Mm-hmm. Right. He's just controlling from outside. Actually the world, in truth, the world is in him. Mm-hmm. It's all his expanded energy. And he doesn't have to react to it in any way at all. He can make it be whatever he likes. Mm-hmm. So if he wants to suddenly be someplace else, he can suddenly be someplace else. If he could make every bit of reality different in a moment. So he's not at all restricted by that. So that when it says it's in that, it means you have certain limitations or certain restrictions, or we're in this room. It can only be this big. It can only be this. There's only so many things we can do. But Krishna can do anything. It doesn't restrict him in the slightest, and everything that exists is resting on him. Like he says, like the pearls on the thread. So it's all just his extended self. So in that sense, and he's the. And as we talked about in the Isha Upanishad, even when he creates everything, mm-hmm. he's not reduced even in potential energy. Right.
So he's just as powerful as he ever was. So it's not like he kind of spreads out. Like we use the little example of the drop of ink in a glass of water. Mm-hmm. It dissolves and spreads everywhere, so the original drop is gone. But with Krishna, it spreads out all over the place, and the original drop is still as big as it was at the beginning. Yeah. So that means it rests in him. And so Prabhupada says in the purport, he says, all material activities in the world are being conducted under the three modes of material nature. Although these material modes of nature are emanations from the Supreme Lord Krishna, he is not subject to them. For instance, under the state laws, one may be punished, but the king, the lawmaker, is not subject to that law. Of course, that's changed these days. Hopefully, actually, oftentimes it's still done that way in a tricky way. Similarly, all the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are emanations from the Supreme Lord Krishna, but Krishna is not subject to material nature. Therefore, he is nirguna, which means that these gunas or modes, although issuing from him, do not affect him. That is one of the special characteristics of Bhagavan, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So even when he appears to be acting in the world, it's like I said, it's almost as if it's a virtual reality. He has as much control over the world as somebody who's running a virtual reality. Like if you could take somebody making a virtual reality and put him in the middle of it. He's the computer and the programmer. That's like Krishna. He's that free. There's no limitations. He makes the rules. He makes the laws. And they don't apply to him. Everything is only existing because of him, and he can make it exist any way he likes. So that's it's a powerful. So again, when we Krishna again is a little repetitive because it usually Prabhupada says that usually means it's important points that we're trying to get across, and so. If we realize that everything in one sense is wall-to-wall Krishna, mm-hmm. if everything that's happening is due to Krishna, if everything that if everything existing or acting or everything is related to Krishna, there's nothing that's outside of that purview, Krishna's mm-hmm. purview. If we have that understanding, then we naturally remember Krishna. Our mind gets fixed on Him
All the time.
all the time. So that's the process of meditation He's teaching here in the 7th chapter, rather than the yogic style. And we said we feel grateful. We begin to interact with Him.
Yeah.
If we're in danger, we pray to Krishna. If we're bewildered, we pray to Krishna.
Yeah.
And we want to do something for Him in return. We feel gratitude to Him. So it motivates that service part.
Rather than be really more secure that He's here everywhere and whatever.
We feel protected.
Protected.
Yeah, we feel protected. Yeah, exactly.
Protected actually.
Yeah. So in so many different, without fear, actually, there's a verse in the Bhagavatam that says that fear is caused by the notion that there's something separate from Krishna.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that it's a fact, So it's a totally different world, and we'll feel, and of course we'll begin to feel complete ourselves,
Right. When we think we are the king, then we feel
then we're in trouble.
there is trouble.
Yeah. So 713 is deluded by the 3 modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. The whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess then because I said the implied question here is, if Krishna is everything, why don't we know Him?
Exactly.
Why do we have to hear it? Shouldn't
If
it?
He's everywhere, what is the problem? This is good actually, right?
Yeah. Of course, we had the same question, but we didn't even know who we are.
Right.
Krishna had to tell us that we're souls. If there's one thing that you would expect to be able to know, it's yourself.
You nothing actually.
Yeah, but we don't even know that.
Exactly.
And for
He's
this,
the one he
and it's for the same reason, because we were attracted by the material possibilities,
Exactly.
and that attraction led to absorption.
Right.
So we only have so much capacity to attend to things, and so when your full attention is captivated, then it goes from attraction to absorption to identification, and then you think that's all there is, because you were so absorbed you forgot who you were. I said somebody playing a video game, we have the word in English, lose yourself.
Right.
So we've lost ourselves, and then we think that what we're experiencing must be me. This is me. And it's locked in. So what to speak of Krishna behind everything? And there's no hope. So he says that the people are deluded, mohitam, deluded, and they don't know Him, who's beyond, and that's their situation. And then he says, Prabhupada says, and if we become entangled with the modes of material nature, then we forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is behind all these modes. So Lord Krishna says that living entities deluded by these 3 modes of nature do not understand that behind the material background is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's from the purport. And so my comment is that Krishna is giving us the knowledge to see behind the material background. That's what's happening here in chapter 7. So we understand the presence, we feel the presence of God. So there's the phenomena that we see. But because we understand how they're connected with Krishna, it becomes numinous. We begin to feel the presence of Krishna. Ultimately, that becomes, in the highest stages of bhakti, becomes you see Krishna face to face, like Arjuna sitting there in the chariot. But for us right now, we begin to feel the presence of Krishna in His creation, in all of the various types of energy. So we begin to sense the presence of the divine. So I love that. I love the use of the term numinous that Prabhupada used, because that's what it does. It makes the world become reveal the presence of the divine if you have the right material, right mentality and understanding. So we're not just sitting here in this godforsaken world, right? I'm here alone in this godforsaken material world. But it's not godforsaken, is it? God is present.
He
is present. So and we can learn to see it, and we can see it, and we can begin to see Him. And when we do that, then our meditation on Him becomes very strong, very strong. with that knowledge, we can remember Krishna and give up the tendency. I've used that typo here in my little PowerPoint. Remember the Krishna. Talking a little bit of strange English there. Remember Krishna and give up the tendency which is mentioned in 7.5 to exploit material nature. And according to like 647, to serve him. So right now our tendency is to exploit and to use for our satisfaction. But when we understand Krishna's presence, we feel gratitude, we feel appreciation, and we also understand it's his. There was a like we say, when the cat's away, the mice will play. Right. So we think there's no cat. We're mice, and we think there's no cat. We know the cat is there. Then we're going to behave ourselves. We know the owner is present. There was in the Krishna temple in Detroit. It's an old mansion.
I see.
And they had in the basement they had 2 bowling alleys.
I see.
But I guess after some years they didn't use them anymore. The owner didn't use them anymore, and so they stored all of the storm windows. During the summer, they'd store behind the alleyway, behind the pins. They'd use it for storage because nobody ever used it. And I guess one of the times when the owner was away, one of the new servants there, one of the new hired help, decided to try to bowl a few frames. And they smashed so many of these storm windows that were hiding behind, so he got caught, got busted, But of course, if the owner had been present,
then
he wouldn't have been thought about going in there.
Yeah.
When the king is gone, you might try to slip up and take a seat on the throne for a minute, see what it feels like.
Yeah.
So
Krishna is present all the time. Actually.
So we think he's away, but if we realize his presence, then naturally our tendency to try to enjoy and to exploit goes down.
Yeah.
And if we appreciate what Krishna is doing for us in so many ways, then we'll want to actually. So instead of exploitation, we move over into service. I want to do something back.
This is one of the biggest realization, if we can have that one.
It is.
All devotees, if they can start thinking like we can just start thinking, he's everywhere. So you will be controlled, cat is there, mouse will be disciplined.
That's what that's why it's good to go through the scriptures, in a kind of a systematic way, because you're reminded of things that sometimes you forget.
And I guess this is the point put it by the Prabhupada, to be more that Krishna is already, or he mentioned it. Yeah. But Prabhupada already making it prominent that he is everywhere.
That's of course Prabhupada takes it from Bhagavad Gita. He says, "I'm just teaching what Krishna taught,"
Yeah.
And so here in 14, we've only got a couple of verses to go today. So we're moving pretty fast today, so it's the 14 is, because we're going to go half and half. So this divine energy of mind, consisting of the 3 modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So this is how you get out. It's not just a technique.
It's just you have to surrender.
But it's a relationship. So if we're reacting to Krishna in the proper way, he will help us.
Yeah.
So it's not just that we're like I said, if I start going out and running every day, my ability to run will increase, or if I lift weights, my muscles will build up. It's not like that. It's not a technique, but it's a relationship.
Yeah.
I recognize the presence of Krishna. I remember Krishna, and he, for his part, then wants to help. And we'll hear that a lot in chapter 10. There's 4 verses that summarize the Gita, called the nutshell verses. And it tells how he does that, how he helps. We've even heard how it takes some bhakti in the other types of dharmas. And so there's always the need of help in all the spirit, even the various types of spiritual paths. Krishna still has to help. So there's a little bit of bhakti even in things that they don't have it's a matter of proportion. Like Krishna was talking about, so there's a little bit of bhakti. Sometimes people add a little bhakti to their jnana, or to their yoga, or to their karma. They add a little bit of bhakti into it, and that's actually what makes it successful. Because Krishna's in charge of everything. He can fix it.
He can fix it. I mean, he can forcefully call us. But he doesn't want it.
Well, because that's relationship. See, that's the thing. So it's not a question also that we become passive. His help is a necessary ingredient,
Right.
but we have to show some desire, some eagerness.
Mm-hmm.
Say, right now, the reason we're here is because we said, Krishna, I don't want you.
Right.
I want to forget you, and I don't want to serve you. So Prabhupada says a few places, he says, Krishna, out of his kindness, helped us to achieve that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's not going to go back on that promise and forcibly make you do something different.
Mm-hmm.
So you show some eagerness,
Then he
and he reciprocates.
Yeah.
You know, and you ask for some help. You show some appreciation. Say, Krishna, I want to reestablish this relationship,
Exactly.
and he's really eager then, and is happy to help you.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to show that. And so if it's just like, okay, well, Krishna, that would be nice, I guess. Take
Yeah.
me if you want. He says, well, I guess you don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to. Then you'll probably blame me.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do that, and look what you did.
Exactly, and then we will blame on it.
Yeah. No, that's not what I wanted. So it's the whole path of bhakti. The dynamic is not a technique. It's not one of technique or I'm searching for another word I can't get, but it's not mechanical. So we do this, and this happens. It's relational. That's the dynamic. That I'm showing Krishna I'm interested.
Mm-hmm.
And Krishna, he already is interested. That's why he's there in the heart. Then he responds, and we build that relationship until it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it has to grow. All relationships, they start at a certain level and they get better and better and better.
Right.
And so it's a relational thing. And that's the dynamic that Prabhupada says in the purport. He says, another meaning of guna, one of the modes, is rope. It is to be understood that the conditioned soul is tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. A man bound by the hands and feet cannot free himself. He must be helped by a person who is unbound. Because the bound cannot help the bound,
Mm-hmm.
the rescuer must be liberated.
Oh, I see.
Therefore, only Krishna, or his bona fide representative of the spiritual master, can release the conditioned soul. So we need help.
This is very problem.
Yeah. See, we need help from Krishna.
Because if you are bonded, how can you?
It's a good example, huh? He says because the gunas, it means strands or ropes. It says if you're
Right.
tied up like that,
Then you can.
you have to be a magician or something, You're Harry Houdini.
Or you have to really work very
Yeah,
hard.
yeah.
Like gymnast.
Yeah. But so what you do is you usually call for help.
Exactly.
So that's really what we have to do. So this is what he's saying. We've put ourselves in a position where it's very difficult to understand Krishna. He's giving us a technique here to begin to think of him and to begin to serve him. That's very effective. But the reason it's effective and the way it's effective is that, and it only will be effective if we have this mood, that we are wanting to connect with Krishna again. That I've forgotten you. I want to have a relationship with you. I'm going to try to remember you. I'm going to follow your advice. I'm going to follow your teachings. But I need your help.
Mm-hmm.
If we just think, okay, here's what I'm going to do and I'm going to attain my result, it won't happen that way. It just won't work.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to be like, I want a relationship with you, Krishna. And Krishna responds to that. And then, of course, as Krishna responds also, then we get more enthusiastic.
Mm-hmm.
That's how it's supposed to go. And the relationship gets deeper and deeper and deeper. Eternally, actually.
Mm-hmm.
This is eternally the relationship gets deeper. That's the wonder about Krishna. It doesn't ever come to an end. And then Prabhupada says, no one can trace out the history of his becoming conditioned at a certain date in material history. Consequently, his release from the clutches of material nature is very difficult. Even though that material nature is an inferior energy, because material energy is ultimately conducted by the supreme will, which the living entity cannot overcome. Inferior material nature is defined herein as divine nature, due to its divine connection and movement by the divine will. It says, because he's referring to the fact that it says, can I get back there? Daivi Hiesha, this transcendental or divine energy consisting of the modes. So he previously, of course, he called it his separated potencies. But here Prabhupada says that because it's conducted by the supreme will, because material energy, he says, even though that material energy is an inferior or separated energy, because material energy is ultimately conducted by the supreme will, which living entity cannot overcome, it's called divine. That's why. Inferior material nature is defined herein as divine nature due to its divine connection and movement by the divine will. It's controlled by the divine. So it takes that desire, and as it said before, the Shraddhavan, we have to have some faith and some desire, and we try to remember and we try to do some service, and we have some confidence that Krishna will help us. We really do. Now the last verse, I separated the chapter directly in half, but this one and the next verse really kind of do go together. It talks about people who will come to Krishna consciousness and first people who will not. Mm-hmm. And it's important to mention something, that there's two major kinds of devotional service. Mm-hmm. And Krishna is going to describe both of them at different times. And here, and what we're going to find something in the purport here that mentions the other kind. Here is a kind that people come, it's called mixed devotional service. Mm-hmm. So they have some purpose for approaching the Lord, but bhakti is very prominent. Mm-hmm. So therefore it's called bhakti, but maybe they have some particular desire. Right. We're going to see here we have 4 people who don't surrender to Krishna, because he said you have to surrender to me to get free of the material mm-hmm. nature. He said here we have 4 people that don't. The next week we'll start with 4 people that do, and these 4 people that do are people that have a certain desire. So they're mixed devotees. Mixed devotees. Yeah. So their bhakti is very prominent, but they have a certain motivation. And there's Kevala Bhakti or Uttama Bhakti, whose desire only is to please Krishna. Mm-hmm. And so we'll see a little bit of that here in the purport in this verse. So it says, there's 4 types of people. It says a duskritana. Prabhupada defines them as miscreants. He defines it a little bit more in the purport. And so it says
he's calling miscreants.
Yeah, duskritana. And he says these people who, and he describes what that means in the purport. Duskritana are gross. He says there's 4 kinds of them. There's mudhas, who are grossly foolish. There are naradamas. This is the lowest amongst the humans. They are the mayaya parata jnanas, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion. They're very intelligent, but they're misguided. And those who are asuram bhavam ashta, who accepted the nature of demons.
Accepted the nature of?
Of the demons.
Oh, demons, I see.
This is he'll partake of the atheistic nature of demons. The words asuram are the demons, or those who are against the Lord. Bhavam is the nature or mood. And ashrita means to accept, or maybe sometimes to take shelter. So who've taken on that nature. So those persons never prapajante. But now, so here but we'll see that there's a loophole also with them.
He gives something.
Yeah. Prabhupada says in the purport, he says, the atheistic plan makers are described herein by the word duskritana, or miscreants. Kriti means one who has performed meritorious work, so some great action. The atheistic plan maker is sometimes very intelligent and meritorious also, because any gigantic plan, good or bad, must take intelligence to execute. So we have in the Bhagavatam, we have Hiranyakashipu, conquering the.
Yeah.
It was quite an achievement, It took a lot of intelligence to do that. But because the atheist brain is improperly utilized in opposing the plan of the Supreme Lord, the atheistic plan maker is called duskriti, which indicates that his intelligence and efforts are misdirected. So it means, I guess that's really the main thrust of it, is that they may be intelligent and they may do even very amazing things, but intelligence and understanding is just wrong, and so it's misdirected and doesn't come out very well. So the 4 types, he gives some definition. The mudhas, it's very foolish. He says those who are grossly foolish, like hard-working beasts of burden. They want to enjoy the fruits of their labor by themselves, and so do not want to part with them for the supreme. And later on he says, most often those who work very hard day and night to clear the burden of self-created duties say that they have no time to hear of the immortality of the living being. To such mudas, material gains which are destructible are life's all in all. So that really covers the large majority of people that were just not interested. More and more these days, just not interested in any kind of practical way with spiritual development. To tell them, we're eternal beings, and they say, no time for that. I'm too busy with this. What are you guys wasting your time for, sitting around there chanting and doing this stuff? You could be making some more money. You could be making a new plan. You could use your life, do something good for yourself. So they see no value in anything spiritual, and they just think that that this life is everything. Or even Krishna talks about even those who understand something about the soul. He calls them the Veda Vadaratas. There's people in the Vedic culture that understand the process of transmigration, but they don't think there's liberation. They just think that you can go to the higher planets, you can get this, you have a better birth next time. The Mimamsikas actually say that very openly, that there's no such thing as liberation. That an organism has to have a soul, it has to have a body to function. And so even somebody who has even more deeper spiritual understanding, they'll say, no, there's no point to anything really spiritual. Just you do some good works, you try to make yourself a better future. So it's more like that. So there's a lot of people just aren't interested. They just don't have the time. They don't have any inclination. Try to make worry about the here and now, not about some pie in the sky future. So they'll tell you, And so those kind of folks, they're not going to tend to surrender to Krishna, because they just don't think it's worthwhile. And then
those kind of folk, they will try to divert you also.
Yeah, they want to help you. They think you're crazy. Why are you wasting your life?
Early to do these things.
Yeah.
And they will try to mold you. Okay, you are in Grasta. Don't you have to do other duties.
Yeah, wait until when you wait till you're old, maybe you can do some of that. Then it doesn't harm anything.
Everybody growing, earning money, just make more money.
It doesn't hurt you at that time.
Right. And so that your future is better. Your old age is better, something like that.
Yeah. So that's what it is. So. And
then when you try to tell them, they will say, "Oh, one round I do it. I'm getting very hard time. I'm not getting time because I'm busy all the time. You are free.
Yeah, different priorities.
Yeah, they will say, okay, I'm very busy.
Yeah.
You are free because of some reason. How come you are getting time for this? But they will make the explanation that they are very busy.
No, because they're doing something very important. Maybe your life is not so important. You're a little bit too lazy. Yeah. So people have that that's what their values are different. They have to understand what value is. So then Prabhupada talks about the Naradamas. He says the civilized human beings are those who have regulative principles of social, political, and religious life. There's some kind of civilization there. Those who are socially and politically developed but have no religious principles must be considered Naradamas. So here he says Sri Nityananda Prabhu, who is the incarnation of Godhead as Divine Master, delivered the typical Naradamas, the brothers Jaghai and Madhai, and showed how the mercy of a real devotee is bestowed upon the lowest of mankind. So here it means that somebody who comes from a tradition that has some spiritual understanding. So the Mudas, pretty much don't. That they usually will come from that same kind of tradition. That this is what life is. This is this is what it is. This is what it is. Get busy with it. What's all this other stuff? Is all fantasy. It's all just trying escapism. It's all just trying to make you feel better for no good reason. It's the opium of the people, as Karl Marx said. And he was a muta in that sense. But the Naradamas have some culture. Like Jagai and Madhai came from a Brahmana family. So they have some culture, but they give it up.
Right.
So it says that they have some opportunity. They were educated in the proper way. They had the chance to do it, but then they turned their back on it. So that's what they are. And here it says, it's interesting, right? Nityananda had mercy on them.
Right.
So they will not surrender under ordinary circumstances. But there may be extraordinary circumstances. Because the Kevala Bhakti or the Uttama Bhakti, that comes through mercy. So the devotees of the Lord, they don't want anything in return for their service. But the Lord wants to do something for them. And so if they desire others to become Krishna conscious, and it says also by nature, when somebody experiences bhakti, it softens their heart. Even it says that the yogis, they see others in terms of themselves. They know that they're also souls just like them. And so they want to do good for others. They wish that others could have the cosmic experience that they have. So the same way, when we become Krishna conscious, we will want to see, and we realize what we were before. And now we realize what value we've gained. And we know other people are exactly the same situation. They just don't know what they're missing.
Right.
And it says it softens the heart and makes people want to share it. And of course, when they want to, if they've built up a certain account with Krishna, Krishna's ready to help them to give it to others, and will help others to even if they're really, in bad shape. Krishna will help to break those initial bonds and get them started in the path of devotional service. So that's how the Kevala or Uttama Bhakti, pure Bhakti, takes place. It's through the mercy of the devotees. We're talking here in this verse and the other verse about the normal path. There's a normal path that people may come to bhakti that doesn't involve that same kind of merciful intervention. Then we have the next class of Diskritiya is called Maya Parita Jnana, or those persons whose erudite knowledge has been nullified by the influence of illusory material energy. This is what Prabhupada says. They are mostly very learned fellows, great philosophers, poets, literati, scientists, etc., but the illusory energy misguides them, and therefore they disobey the Supreme Lord. So they mean also, come up with either atheistic theories, or sometimes like the Mayavad theories. I think that the Lord has no real form and this kind of stuff. So they may be very intelligent and philosophical people, but somehow are guided towards wrong conclusions. And Prabhupada said he came to the West to help free people from Nirvishesha and Shunyavadi, the voidism and impersonalism. And so people, people who are very philosophical, they may come to really harmful conclusions because their knowledge. So they have knowledge. That's why it says that their knowledge has been stolen by illusion, because they still don't want to have a relationship with the Lord. So they come up with sometimes elaborate theories and things to justify that. To justify that. And then the last class of Diskriti is called Asuram Bhavam Ashrataha, or those of demonic principles. This class is openly atheistic. Such persons whose very principle of life is to decry the personality of Godhead cannot surrender unto the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. I guess that's pretty plain if you're really inimical. It's not even that you want to be forgetful, but you really don't like it. There's a certain Asuram Bhavam. So there, even it comes down to the point of actual being enemies.
They will just be fighting.
Yeah. Somehow, it's God is false. Or even if they think He exists, they think He's just a powerful entity, and they can take over.
We can see some Asura.
Yeah.
We can see some Asuras there.
I want to be the most powerful. Don't tell me there's somebody powerful.
Right.
I'm going to be it.
Yes.
I'm going to be the most powerful, and if there's somebody, I'm going to fight with them. I'm going to defeat them. I'm going to. Don't tell me to worship me.
They are enemy to their Lord itself.
Yeah. I don't want to be. They have my Guru Maharaj says they have a God project. They want to become God in some way.
Yes.
So don't tell me I got to worship somebody else.
Yeah.
You're going to worship somebody
And
else.
then they will say, okay, you don't do this one. You just worship him.
Yeah,
Like that.
yeah, yeah. You should, So it's,
Prabhu actually this one, the four kind of the people Prabhupada given,
yeah,
he given himself that explanation, Prabhupada, right? Krishna did not put it these four people.
no, he Prabhupada defined them.
He Prabhupada defined, but
Krishna names them. He says they're Muda, Naradama.
I see.
He says that they're Maya, Parita, Jnana, and Asuram Bhavana. That comes right from the verse. So
Prabhupada just
he's just explaining those terms. Yeah, he's trying to give an explanation of
it
those
means
terms.
like those four kind of the people, definitely they are there.
Yeah.
And then
And says they're not going to surrender.
One of them also, I'm not saying like that.
Yeah.
But definitely those people, like I met somebody, and then I was asking to go for do some this chanting.
Yeah.
So she was saying like I gain the peace from something else, doing something else,
Yeah.
So I was giving the example that okay, you can get that peace from that one, but that is not eternal peace actually. That is temporarily you are getting it.
All participants are unmuted.
There's actually somebody listening online, so this I guess so. We're going to open the floor also for questions online. If people online have questions, this is a good time to do it. But otherwise, I mean, it's the truth. Many of us were such people.
Yeah, many of us.
Luckily, we got the mercy.
Exactly.
We got that special exemption. But under ordinary circumstances, those people are not going to approach Krishna. They're not going to surrender, and so therefore they can't escape bondage, right? Because Krishna said that that material energy is very difficult. Because we've asked him to disappear and to let us be independent.
Yes.
So when Krishna does something, he does it really well, and he's not going to remove it unless we change our minds.
Right.
And we can't escape it on our own because we're not trying to escape it for good purposes. We've actually wanted to be that way. So Krishna can do things very skillfully. So it takes his intervention to reverse that process. And so these folks with that attitude, it's not going to happen for them under ordinary circumstances. We already heard in the one commentary what the extraordinary circumstances are. That even someone with these different types of attitudes and outlooks, it says that the devotees of the Lord have like the power of attorney over the Lord's kripa shakti, his power of mercy. And so somehow or other, with the blessings of a devotee, it cuts through all those things and gives them a chance to reconsider and to make a choice. It says we always have a certain level of freedom to be able to choose God or not. But generally, if we're deep into one of these kind of moods, then we have very little freedom. We can't think much about that. We generally just whatever the mind says for us to do, whatever the senses tell us to do, we just do it.
Yeah.
But we can there's a moment of grace there that comes in and opens up that chance to decide to understand something different and to make that free choice.
Yeah.
So even so many people around the world have been saved by the mercy of devotees, even when they were in a very dire condition and would not have otherwise approached God or approached Krishna. But somehow the influence of the mercy of the Lord through the devotees helped them to be able to make that free choice to take up Krishna consciousness. And so that's. But otherwise, if things are left alone, if that special intervention doesn't take place, they're not gonna. He says they don't ever surrender to me. The situation is very, very dire. So next week we will cover the last 15 verses. It's a 30 verse chapter, is verse 7.
Okay.
And it'll be same time, same place.